Hi, welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irina. I'm the host here. My guest today is Deborah, and Deborah comes from Switzerland. And I just got introduced to you by another guest of Fiberchats, Merit, who is the one of the organizers of Swiss Yarn Festivals. So I was like very happy when she introduced us. Welcome to Fiberchats.
Hi, Irina. I'm very happy to be chatting with you today. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, when I first met you, we immediately found the common bond, which was Julie Knits in Paris. And Julie Knits in Paris is a wonderful designer, and I've been test knitting as part of her what so-called dream team for a number of years. I absolutely love her designs, and right now she just released the pattern for Swiss Yarn Festival, and you were the official dyer for this pattern, and you're selling kits, right?
I'm not the official dyer of this particular pattern, but Julie created two patterns with Penny Lane yarns. One 2 years ago and one last year. Actually, I know Julie. I've been knowing Julie quite a long time, actually. We met at a fantastic yarn festival where I hope you will be coming to. I think you have to stay in Europe after Swiss Yarn Festival. It's called Motoko. It's in France. It's in Mulhouse. And Julie was there teaching. It was the first edition, and this is how we met. And I immediately felt a profound love for her. She's an incredible person. She's warm and but not overdue. She's not so I really like her. I love her design. And at the time I was also really impressed because I've never done any brioche knitting or things like that. I was for a long time not a very good knitter. I'm getting a lot better now. And so yeah, so one day she took some yarns from me and she made the first design, the o'clock shawl, which is a round shawl.
Me too.
And
Was one of the testers for that show.
I
It's
know I saw it on your Instagram feed. So she did, and the very funny thing, I have to tell you this thing. So my friend Meret from Butzeria, you just had an interview with her, so the co-director of the Swiss Yarn Festival. She's a really good friend of mine. And one day, and quite a long time ago, maybe 4 years ago, because we live in the same city, and so sometimes we meet for drink and knits and stuff, and she would say, "Hey, Deborah, I would really like you to dye me a special color. I want something which is light gray and dark gray for the moment of tempest. It has to represent me, and I want fluo things on it because this is who I am. Sometimes I'm gray and tempest, and sometimes I'm completely fluo." So I've been dyeing this yarn. I can show it because I wanted to talk about this color. So I've been dyeing this color for Meret, and it's called Meret Soul. And the funny thing is, the year later, or a couple of weeks later, there was this Motoko festival in France. And Julie was there. And the first thing she does, and she comes and tack, she takes this particular color with the yellow. And so that was the combination of the shawl. And if you see Meret and Julie together, because they also are very good friends and they've been together in Paris. And so they are extremely different, but there is this bond. They have this bond together, and it is very funny that they both completely flashed. One who wanted this yarn, who desired this yarn as a color for her, and Julie, who's like, it was really like, pa, and she took this yarn and said, ah, I'm going to do a shawl with it. So that was really, really funny.
interesting how like the color can connect the souls basically.
I think so. I think so. And for a very long time, I thought I was like a lot of people always wearing black. Okay, like black, 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 black. Uh, and color was like, oh, color. And then I think when I got back to knitting, I've been like not knitting for 20 years or something. And then when I got back to knitting, I got back to colors. And now, since I begin dyeing colors myself, when I dye colors, I'm in another space.
Well, let's talk about how you got into this whole dyeing business because you had a very roundabout road to that. Like you didn't start as a yarn dyer. Tell me a little bit about your career path.
I think I'm a very, I have a son who's now 19 years old, and when I see him, I'm like, I recognize myself at this time because he would be completely focused, like he can play piano, he would learn piano and play piano like crazy for 6 months. But then after a year, he's like, oh no, I think I would like to learn guitar or whatsoever. So I've been doing a lot of different things in my life, really. I began as a cultural producer, so I've been producing different kind of cultural stuff for many years, like 20 years or something. I even produced a little musical in New York. I produced exhibitions. I produced a theater festival for young audiences. So, and then when my son was born, I realized it was not possible to have little children and working in this field, the producing field, because you work with projects. And so you have a project is 200%, then you stop, and then and so it was not compatible with daycare, with whatsoever, where you have to give really. And so then I began working with my husband, who's an architect. Actually, we've been doing this a long time, but I would also always write text for him or working in his French text for competition and stuff like this. So for a couple of years, we've been working together. But then at some point, I realized I needed something on my own. It was great I loved it. I loved writing. This is one of my other passion, but I needed to have something mine. I needed to be my own person, if you want. And it was complicated for me to reinvent myself, even though I've done this a couple of times. But this time I was not knowing where I would go, and I'm still live here in Switzerland, but in the German part of it. And I'm not a German, it's not my mother tongue, and it's not a very easy language for me. So it was a complicated moment. And actually, in this complicated moment, I was knitting a lot, really knitting, knitting, knitting. And then I would begin buying those indie dyers. There was no indie dyers at that time in Switzerland. So I was buying them from England, from America and stuff. And then I had a friend who was more or less in the same situation. And we said, oh, we should begin dyeing. So, and then t- it, yeah, then a friend of mine said, oh, I would like you to make me a color like this and like that. And Andrea Mori made this beautiful shawl, I don't remember how it's called, the one with 7 colors, Find Your Fate. So a friend of mine in Paris was like, oh, I would like to make a Find Your Fate. Can you dye me the colors? Blah, blah. And so this is how I begin dyeing. And then at a certain point, it was like, well, maybe this is my skill. And so I went for it.
Well,
So,
you told me that like you were toying with the idea of becoming a knitwear designer, but you didn't think that you were qualified enough.
of course.
Um, did you feel like you were qualified enough with the dyeing? Were there any doubts that like you should get into that business?
I think maybe this is okay. So I'm not qualified to be a designer. This I can really say with extreme. I can remember when I was a kid or something. Like my aunt would knit me those incredible winter sweater with like the skier and the blee. So beautiful. But then it fell out of fashion and the knitting stuff. And then you with a lot of American at the beginning. I had the feeling it was more American and English people, and then all the Nordic came, and so you have this renewal of designing. And the first time I went on Ravelry, it was like, wow, blown away with all those modern and contemporary knitting, sweater, shawls, everything. And I was like, so I was very excited. And I was like, oh. And so I went also to the page of the Gilded Association, I don't know, the American Association. Yeah. And because I wanted to take a class, but in Switzerland at that time, there was nothing really. So I've looked into this to be a class also to be a better knitter, to be able to learn all those techniques, to be able to knit those incredible designs. And then in the repertoire they also have designing class. Or if you do the knitting class, you have to design something. And we're like, wow. And but after like 10 minutes, I knew I don't have the skill. And if I think about all the work of scaling, everything, so it's absolutely not for me. And with dyeing, the thing is, I dyed, it was a slow process. And I think what I wanted to say also is this, a lot of women have this thing, are always doubting their ability to dye, their ability to this, to that. It's like sometimes I think about, well, this knowledge I've been accumulating because I'm dyeing now like 9 years. So it's you learn different kind of techniques. You also learn the fibers. So that this is the something beautiful for me is learning to know the fibers. And so you have all those design schools and this and I'm like, oh, I should go and make a class there. And always this feeling that you don't know enough, that you do. So maybe it's also, I think, for I'm reading a lot on feminism and women and stuff, and I think it's something that a lot of women think that,
I agree. Like, I think it's very common among women to doubt ourselves and be our, biggest critics.
yeah,
And it was probably like part of why I started this channel, just to challenge myself and to prove to myself that I'm capable of something. So,
yeah,
like a lot of us, when we're getting older, we actually think like, okay, what do I have to lose? Let me try it at least. So I
absolutely.
very freeing to age as a woman because you allow yourself more possibilities of failing and more possibilities of mistake and just trying for the sake of trying.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And for all, you have the feeling, oh, you have no diploma, you have no this, you have no that, but actually go with your instinct. Go where you called. It's, yeah.
Let's talk about your discovery of yarn, like as you're dying, right? So at some point, like I want to say like bunch of years ago, there was every festival you would go, it would be the same sock yarn that everybody was dyeing in different colors, and you wouldn't really see hand dyed yarns on other bases. And I find that nowadays, when I go to festivals, and especially like I saw it a lot in Barcelona this time, there are a lot of like very exotic, like really luxurious bases, and people are more into sustainability and traceability of yarn and like taking care of those animals. Tell me your journey, like from the when you just first started to where you now.
It's true, you're right. This is also a difference I've been noticing, and I think it comes from different factors. The first thing is an economical one, of course, which is on both sides, the dyers and the client. Because I think at the beginning, when dyeing was beginning, I mean, with all this renewal of modernization of knitting and the new dyers, indie dyers, and everything, at the beginning, it was not a lot of people knitting with hand dyed. And I think, and sometimes it's still the case that people don't understand the prices with hand dyed yarn and the difference of prices from an industrial yarn and from an hand dyed or for different fibers and stuff. But of course, year after year, the number of knitters interested in hand-dyed yarn or also in different fibers has grown. And also the knowledge of us dyers has grown, because at the beginning, of course, what you do, you take sock yarn because you want to test, and you will not test on cashmere. So you test on sock yarn. And from sock yarn, you go to, so for me, for example, at the beginning, I had a little bit of sock yarn and I had 100% merino. So those were the two, and also only fingering, because that was the most used weight for the designers that I was seeing on Ravelry and stuff, so all the design and stuff. And of course, so you learn, you test on your sock yarn because it's less expensive, and then you go, you dye it on. And then I begin looking around for other bases, and so then I discovered the alpaca. And I think also, I can only speak for myself, of course, but I've seen my client. I have some clients that are very, so they, in the end, now we're friends and we knit together on Thursday mornings. But I've seen also, like, we would be growing up together in the knowledge. And so after a while, okay, so then I had this incredible baby camel and silk, and so I've been dyeing this, and they would be testing it. And so that was the first thing, is trying to discover other fibers, and also understanding. It's a long process to just also understand what is a fiber, what is the difference between this and this animal fiber. How do you, I've been talking a lot, I go a lot to Italy, I love Italy a lot, so I go a lot there. And I've been talking with people spinning cashmere, so what's the difference between spinning and dyeing cashmere with other fibers? And it was a very interesting discussion. And then for me now, so it was for me always important to understand how the animal were treated. So the person, the meals I'm working with are absolutely like no mulesing, and so they're traceable and everything, which is for me very important. And now my next step would be trying to be more local, because the merino I buy comes from Peru. I like this project, what is happening in Peru with women and yarn, and so giving also autonomy to women through working with alpaca or with merino. But the idea of working with more local for a local also clients is something that is here in my mind. So I'm constantly looking and trying to find fibers. The interesting thing in Europe, I don't know in America, but it's probably the same, is in Europe, for like Switzerland, for example. Switzerland was specialized in spinning. Silk. Switzerland was an extremely big producer of silk, for example. They could spin silk, like they were specialized. But there has time comes where the government is like, oh, you have to pay more taxes and more taxes and more taxes. So all the spinners in Switzerland moved to Italy. So the whole Italian knowledge, and then Italy became, northern of Italy became wonderful spinner. I think Italy, like Italians can spin cashmere, nobody else can. And so, but all this knowledge, it's funny because it comes from Switzerland, and they moved there because of the taxes. And so also the thing is, at some point, probably also for the wars and everything, they decided that animal will be, the importance of animal is the nutrition. So they would produce animal, they would farm animal for the milk or for the meat. but not for the fiber anymore. So, for example, in Switzerland, where we had incredible mills and spinning knowledge, they completely stopped. So in Switzerland, it's beginning again now, but all the animal farming was absolutely not, and all the fiber was not usable for the knitting industry. So this is, I think, a knowledge that is coming back slowly. It's also a very interesting one. I think it's an important path to take. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about colors because at the end of the day, when you come to a yarn festival and you see, 100 hand dyers, it's hard to differentiate yourself, right? Like some people, some booth will jump at you and others is just becoming a blur. How do you differentiate yourself from others?
That's a good question. I have to say that, so for example, on Instagram, I don't follow other dyers, just a couple that are friends, because if I have this fear of if I see what they do, that I would copy them or it will stay in my mind, oh, this color, or that someone would say, hey, you copied. So yeah. So this is why I always work my way. And then when I go to festival, I it's very funny because sometimes when I'm at a festival, I like last year in Swiss Yarn Festival, I had a client looking for a color, and so she came. She wanted to make a shawl, to knit a shawl, so she was doing a shawl. And no, she wanted to knit a shawl. So she comes and she takes something and she's like, "Oh, I'm looking for a color and I knew one of the other dyers I really like. She was having the exact color she was looking for. And so I took the girl with me, my client, and she's also a friend. She's a very funny one. So I took her and I said, "Come with me." So I went to the other stand and I looked for the color. I took it and the day she was really laughing and then she came to me, and so I don't see concurrence in other dyers, uh, because I think the more quality dyers you have, the more good dyers, the more good fibers, the more dyers dying on good fibers you have, the more people would get interesting in hand dyed product and also in working with quality yarn. It's something also that when I before I began dyeing, when I was getting back to knitting, I began like, yeah, knitting the sock yarn. And so, no, I never really knitted the sock yarn because I don't really like the nylon. But of course, these two, and then you go on bigger projects, longer projects, more budget, but you need less. I mean, it's not like you buy, but you want the quality. So I think this is something that has slowly come, and this is why I think it's good to have different dyers. And I don't know how to answer the question how am I different to other dyers? I think color is infinite. The mixing of yellow and green, the 100,000 blue, the 100,000 pink, all the nuances, all the combination in speckles. It's so. What I know for sure is I am colorful, which is something at the beginning I didn't recognize in me because of the black, black, black. So I I have lots of colors. I'm colorful, joyful, and colorful in my dyeing. This I know. At the beginning, I didn't have any beige. Like beige is a color I cannot recognize for a long time. And then I dyed one for my friend Frida from Fleur and Frankie. She was like, "Oh, I need a beige to make a sweater." And it was like, "Frida, I'm gonna kill you." And then I dyed this beige, and so I've been testing and testing, and then I was like, "Wow, that's a beautiful beige." So, and it's called Lusta, which in Swedish would say desire. So it's a very nice. But at the beginning, I could not dye beige because I could not recognize beige. For me, it was not a color. And so it's also funny how you will evolve yourself in the dyeing process.
Well, last year I decided very resistantly to dabble in design. And what I found in design world that the most difficult thing about designing something is coming up with the name. Do you find it difficult to name colors? How do you decide on how to name the color?
No, I adore naming colors. It's something I really, no, I adore naming colors, really. So a lot of colors are just a name because, or because someone asked me to dye this and this color, like Meret, for example, it's Meret Soul, or because I think about this person and I want to make her a present or whatever. And so I would dye a color for this person and knit something for them. When I dye, I have a song in mind. At the beginning, it was lots of songs because I was hearing a lot of music while dyeing. Now I can't, I absolutely can't hear music dyeing. I don't know why. I would listen to podcasts or the news on television whatsoever. I need voices, but not music. It's funny. So it was lots of songs. I love olives, and if you go to Genova, they have those Tajasca olives that are the best olives you can think. And so when I dyed this color, it was like, oh my God, this is really like the Tajasca olive. So no, I love naming the colors because each and every one of my color has a story. So it's for me, it's very easy to name them. And if not, I would just make a post on Instagram or come a Thursday morning to my knitting friend and say, "Hey, what's the name of this color?" But usually, no, usually I really like it. Yeah.
Well, when you dye colors, like is that your aesthetic, personal aesthetic, or is that what you think the market needs, or what you think like your palette needs to add the new color? How do you come up with new colors?
I have to say, at the beginning, when I began dyeing, for all when I decided I would do this professionally, I wanted to have a collection. I wanted to have, of course, a repeatable color that I would be able to dye again, but I wanted to have a range of colors that would make sense. So I think I spent maybe 8 to 9 months, like a pregnancy, just working on the collection. And, I wanted to have a green and a blue and a yellow and a pink and there, and then colors in between, and then the speckles. And in the end, I ended up with a collection I really liked, where one color would lead you to the next. And it was not a fade. It just the idea that one color leads you to the next. And I had like maybe 30 colors, 20 colors, something like that. And then I went public, like made my website, everything. Well, I've been working on that also during the dyeing process, but I did not really went out until I had this piece of collection, this collection. And then for a long time, I would just look at the collection and like, oh yeah, here something is missing. So that was the beginning. Now I can be influenced by, I don't know, I see a movie and someone is having a beautiful dress and I'm like, oh my God, this color. And so I would take like a week until I find the exact mix for this color, like this dress I've seen. Or so no, I don't have any scheme because I think my collection is, yeah. So I've been working a lot on fluo colors because I think they're complicated to dye, me myself, so maybe other dyers know, but and then I don't know. It depends.
When I talk to like yarn dyers, there's usually these two main categories of yarn dyers. There are those that see themselves as artists, and then there are those who see themselves as chemists, scientists, where it's like precision and exact measurements, and they'll take pictures of exact sprinkling of the color and the whole process so it's repeatable. Where are you in that spectrum?
Probably in the middle. Um, Most of my colors are repeatable. Sometimes I make a color that isn't. Sometimes it's a potluck. Sometimes, like socks, for example, sock yarn. I've decided I would not have sock yarn in the collection anymore. I mean, it's still in the collection. People can buy it, but it will be only potluck colors or colors that I want to dye, but that are not coming into the collection, for example. So it's my funny, it's my fun. So I document my colors. I have a book where I write the formula. So how much of this gray with how much of this pink and the speckles are. And I have when I speckle, for example, I know I have this first third, the second third, so of the skein. So I have a system. It's not a scientific, of course, it's a system that would work for me. I don't consider myself as an artist. In French, we have this word which is an artisan. So it's not an artist, is more like a maker because I don't sell art. Uh, I I always sometimes I have this feeling that I'm making a fantastic job because I sell joy when people buy art. They're like, oh, they begin knitting. So I'm a maker. I'm an artisan. I don't know any word in English which is an artisan, but I think it's the perfect naming of what I do, actually. So, yeah.
When it comes to turning your hobby into a business, like people always think like if somebody opens yarn store, they just sit in that beautiful place where the yarn is all around and they need people come, they chat, and the reality of it, they have to like sweep the floors and organize the yarn and do the orders, and it's like the last thing they do is knit. Is it the same for the yarn dyer? Like when I'm thinking of yarn dyeing, I'm thinking like you come to the kitchen and you mix something and it's magical. Like, did you lose that sense of magic along the way because it's a business?
It's a very good question. So, there are two answers to this question. The first answer is I absolutely did not lose the magic. When I dye colors, it's the magic is there. Even if I have to repeat for the 300th time the same color, and if at a certain point I don't like the color anymore, I just get out of it. So the magic is absolutely 100% still there, but there is a little bit. I don't know if it's frustrating, but so if you are an indie dyer, the amount of work outside of dyeing or around dyeing is very important, is enormous. A lot of people don't see it, which is absolutely okay. It's not that if you buy a skein of yarn, you have to think, oh my goodness, what did that? It's not that, but it's just sometimes this is eating me. Because it's of course, you dye, you make new colors, you think of the color. So this is all the magic. But then you have to think, oh, do I have enough of this fingering lane or do I need to buy some? And also the pigment, you have enough pigment, blah, blah, blah. And then, oh, the labels. Oh my goodness. I'm getting out of labels. And every time you have a new a new base, you have to make new labels, and you have to make the website, you have to make Instagram. For me, Instagram is I have a very difficult relationship with Instagram, with this always need to post, and sometimes and make the pictures of the new color. So the amount of work around the dyeing part to be able to sell a color or sell a yarn or whatsoever. For all, I think today also with all those social network and the fact that you would sell on your website. So this is something that sometimes is eating me. The booking, it's like, yeah, that's a part that is difficult for me. Yeah.
Oh, you talked about your son at the beginning of this interview and how sometimes he wants to play piano and sometimes he wants to do guitar. Do you see yourself getting out of yarn dyeing and jumping into something completely else and reinventing yourself yet again?
Every day. Every day. I'm a person of project. For years, I've been working exclusively on projects. So, project that you would projecting, that you would be realizing, producing, and that you would be ending, and then you had another phase, and then you go to the next. So, I think this is extremely profound. It's deep in me. I have to say, Penny Lane, it's going to be 10 years soon. In 1 year, it's 10 years. Um, it's a very long time for me. It's a very, which means I really love it. I really like it. I really love it. But every day, I have to say, every day in my head, a project pops up. It's like, oh my goodness, I should do. Sometimes I just want to sit and knit and sell my knittings. And sometimes I like, there's yarn everywhere. I have yarn everywhere. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should do this little jewelry, the knitting jewelry, because this is small and it's not, and it's like it's a cupboard, but that's it. So every day I have another project. I'm like, oh, I should do a cooking workshop. I should do this. So something really pops up in my head like constantly every day. So yeah, I can, but I'm so attached to the fibers. I love the fibers. I love the knitting. I love the progress I've been making in knittings because I'm working with a lot of fantastic designers like Meret, like Julie, who asked me for yarn and stuff. And then I need to knit what they're making with my yarns. And so at the beginning, I was like, ooh. So I love it a lot. But no, I could easily, if something comes, I'm like, I could go somewhere else. I hope I'm not, but yeah, I could.
Well, if you had some really dear friends coming and visiting you, what would you be cooking? Is there like a special dish that you pride yourself?
Yeah, I I I love Persian cooking a lot.
Yeah.
Uh, I have absolutely no relationship to Iran or to Persia or to whatever. I've never been there. I think I have a very deep bond with women fighting for their rights over there, but that has nothing to do with cooking. But I love their cooking. So I would probably do a tzaddik rice, caramelized rice with an aubergine.
Funny, it's one of my favorite cuisines, and I have also zero connection to it, but I just
You see, like, yeah, yeah, I adore it. Yeah.
well, I hope maybe we'll have time to just sit, chat, and maybe try some of your recipes if I'm lucky when I'm in Switzerland.
Yes, I hope. I hope.
It was very exciting to get to know you a little bit, and I'm sure we'll continue getting to know each other. And thank you so very much for being my guest today.
No, thank you. Thank you. I really, it's been very fun. I can't wait that you come to Switzerland for the Swiss Yarn Festival. I hope you will stay in Europe a little bit. And of
Very,
course, I'll cook for you as much as you want.
thank you very much. I'm looking forward to that.
Bye, Irina. Bye.